Jen Mall, and welcome to Nurse Connect. I am an RN and a board certified nurse coach. I believe that connecting with others is essential to living a happy and fulfilled life, and that sharing our stories not only helps us to heal ourselves, but also helps others by inspiring hope and optimism. I am so grateful to share stories of these incredible nurses on their journey, and I encourage you to find a way to share yours too. Thanks for listening in. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Jen Mall with Nurse Connect Podcast, and I'm excited to have Steve here with me. Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, awesome. And I don't know that I shared this, but you are my first male guest. And so I'm very excited to finally break through on that. So thank you for being first in that space.
Oh, hope I do a good job.
You will. This is going to be fun. So I usually start out with asking people to just kind of take me back. What drew you towards nursing, pushed you into nursing? I'd love to hear how you got started. I know, right? Because I know a little secret. But how did you get started in nursing? Kind of what has your career path been?
I never wanted to be a nurse. I sometimes tell patients that and then tell them, aren't you glad I'm the one taking care of you today?
And how do they respond with that?
Yeah, they chuckle like that. And then, usually they say yes. They hesitate. I close the door and ask the question again.
Perfect.
So I was, my resume looks like a sampler platter rather than a main course. So I've talked to nurses that were, well, I was, 3 months old and knew then that I wanted to get into nursing because I like taking care of my dolls. Boy, not me. Yeah, so I did anyway, all kinds of things. I was in the military. I was a truck driver. I was an armed guard in inner city Seattle. That was a really dumb job.
That sounds challenging.
Yep. It was my first taste in using, like, it's probably better to develop the ability to work with people rather than power. That was an environment where a lot of people relied on power. But the truth is that the number of gang members I was surrounded by collectively had more power than I did.
Yikes.
At any rate, so we worked our way through that. I lived through it.
Thank God.
So I did all kinds of things. I was a home improvement contractor, a guy at the manager. So like right now, right, in lots of different places, there's big signs on buildings. You can just kind of walk in and get an interview whenever you want to. And so at this home improvement store, that's the way it was. They had a great big sign on the building. I'm 27 years old then, homeless. I had some money because I hadn't burned it in my savings account, checking account yet. That's the only reason I had any money. I was homeless. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a driver's license because it had been revoked. And I was living with grandma. The picture of success. And would you believe it was everyone else's fault? Too.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
So I've met those people in the ER now, right, as an ER nurse. And so then they, start talking about their thing, and I just chuckle like,
I get you.
Yep. If you got a minute, I'll tell you a story. So anyway, there's this big sign that says now hiring. And so I got an interview right on the spot, and the guy reaches across his desk. He's going to offer me a job. And I picked a fight with him.
Oh, no.
And so he jumped back into the back corner to avoid that. And we eventually reached an agreement, which was, I'm not going to hire you. And my side of it was, I'm not going to work here.
Yeah.
So you can always get to an agreement. And that was ours. And that was all on me, right? The guy was offering me a job, and I'm the one who picked the fight with him. That was after reading How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Guessing you didn't internalize a lot of that at that point.
Yeah, maybe read a chapter again, something. So eventually I became a contractor and started buying a bunch of stuff from him. And so we had a chance to, put that back together.
Good.
But on my way out of the store, this is how I became a contractor. I bought a book that I thought was a tech manual.
Okay.
Because I needed to put a roof on my grandma's garage. I didn't know how to do that. And so I bought a book that I thought was a tech manual, and instead it was a really badly written do-it-yourself book. And so I used that, and I used that to become a professional contractor.
Hey, you
That
made
was the
do with
start.
what you got. That's awesome.
Yeah, so right, start with where you are,
Yeah.
with what you have, and so I started there. Um, and then I was in that business for 10 years, in a
Mm,
couple of different iterations, and I learned how to do some different trades as well. Um, and then in 2008, I sold that company, had an opportunity to sell it.
mm-hmm.
It was either that, really, it was either that or get buried by it.
Mm,
Um, but so I sold out, and now by then I'm 38 years old. I'm married and have two kids with
mm-hmm.
one of those, oh, what's that mortgage? It put me out of business.
Well, it's like balloon ones
Um,
that.
no, the, anyway, the kind of mortgages they shouldn't have been selling,
Yes, in
right?
2008. That
Yeah,
timing was
yeah.
crummy.
And I was the new small guy in a new small town.
Oh.
Um, anyway, it was something like 12% interest. It was phenomenal.
Mm,
Dave
mm,
Ramsey would have been unhappy, but I didn't ask
yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Um, so I end up going to college for the first time, and my plan is to get a degree in business, and I'm going to go back into business doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? At that point, I've never been to college before, and so instead, I became a contractor, or became a paramedic.
Ah, yes.
So I started college for the first time to get a degree in business.
Okay.
And then I'm like every other college kid, right? I bounced around on lots of different
Uh-huh.
things, and college could have been way cheaper for me. Um, but in the end, I came out with an associate's degree as a paramedic.
Awesome.
So as an EMT first, and I did that thinking, like, won't this be great? I can work two 24-hour shifts, 48 hours, and I'll still have 5 days a week available to do something else. So I didn't go into EMS because I really want to just help my neighbor who I've never met before.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that. It was, I wanted the lifestyle of long shifts, but not very many days, so I could
Mm-hmm.
have days available to do other things. That's what I was
Mm-hmm.
after. Um, well, instead so I did that for a bit and then became a paramedic. Um, and then while I was a paramedic, and my wife was a nurse, but I had no interest in nursing. Um, so while I was doing that, now I'm looking at healthcare for the first time ever, really, as a career. Like, people actually
Mm.
do this. Like, they go to a hospital every day and work as whatever it is they do there, which was a new idea for me, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd been a contractor forever. I'd never really had a job, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, right? I go and clock in. I'd never really done that ever. Because in the Navy, you're not really, I guess technically you're an employee, but it's more
Mm-hmm.
like the people that were like Abe Lincoln set a bunch of them free, but not sailors.
Got
Um,
it.
yeah. And then as a truck driver, I didn't punch a clock. I just, all the
Get the
time,
job done.
yeah, I just drove, right? If there was
Mm-hmm.
hours in the day, I drove. Um, so at any rate, now I'm talking to nurses all the time in all
Mm-hmm.
different areas, right? In the ER and ICU, med surge, wherever I'm going to pick up or drop off a patient,
Mm-hmm.
which made me start thinking about healthcare as a career. I didn't want to be a nurse. I'm happy being a paramedic. I went to nursing school as a way to get to be a PA. So
Ah,
in paramedic and around nurses, I learned about being a PA, right?
yeah.
And so maybe it's, not super well thought out, but my idea was like, oh, okay, so I'm still going to work 12-hour shifts, but I'll get to make a lot more of the decisions rather than just getting told what to
Mm-hmm.
do all the time. I was a contractor for a long time. I like to be able to make the decisions.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, I saw the way to get to PA school was to go to nursing school, because I had to get a bachelor's degree in something,
Mm-hmm.
and nursing pays more than being a paramedic.
Yeah. Yeah. At
So
least get
I
some
went to nursing
experience in that
school.
field.
Yeah. Well, anyway, in nursing school, I learned about nurse practitioner,
Ah.
which was even a more direct route, end up at basically the same spot as a PA.
Mm-hmm.
And so that became my plan. Like, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that as, $1 bill versus a different dollar bill, but they're saying $1, right?
Yeah.
So I saw them as interchangeable, and so decided I'll go and be a nurse practitioner. And then I'm happily scrolling on Facebook and not doing my homework for my bachelor's program when I saw the ad for the Nurse Coach Collective,
Oh, wow.
which was my introduction to this really eclectic world of coaching. So prior to that, if anybody had said I'm a coach, then that would have meant to me like you're coaching your kid's soccer team or something like that, right? Or perhaps you're a college coach or whatever, but you're coaching a sports team anyway, right? That's all I know about it. So anyway, I see this ad for the Nurse Coach Collective, and I know immediately nursing is all about evidence-based, yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
And I knew immediately that Nurse Coach Collective was a scam. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew it just right now. And I can't get away from it. So it is evidence-based, right? So I have two very important pieces of evidence to support that Nurse Coach Collective is a scam. And one of them is that it's a Facebook ad. And then if it's a Facebook ad, of course, it's a scam because that's all they do. And the other one is that I have never heard of it before. And so, of course, that means it's not real. So it's possible that there are things in the world that exist and I haven't heard of them, but
maybe.
So those are my two really important pieces of information, right? But still knowing that, like absolutely convinced of it, I cannot get away from it. I didn't
And
ask
you were already a nurse at this point.
Yep. Yeah. I'm a traveling ER nurse.
Okay.
I'd been traveling at that point. I'd been traveling since I was like 10 months old as a nurse.
Did you jump right into ER traveling basically?
Yep.
As a nurse?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My first nursing job, my staff job was in the ER.
Oh.
And then I was 10 months old as a nurse when I started traveling.
Oh, wow. How long ago was this?
I started traveling in 2016.
Okay. Kind of for the craziness of COVID.
Yeah, long before COVID made it popular.
Yeah.
And then I traveled all through that.
Cool.
Right. So at the time when I see this thing, coaching, no one's ever talked about it in the world of nursing. There had been some talk in nursing school about the importance of having a mentor. I thought maybe I would find a mentor in a guy named Mark. He was the ER director at my third travel assignment, was in New Mexico. Actually, fun story about that. One of the things I do now is help people to connect when they communicate. So I have a really fun story about how I did that at that job in New Mexico. I went dancing with a one-legged woman in her underwear.
What? Okay, you have to back that up. You got to tell the whole story.
So we can maybe come back to that, but anyway, it's really fun.
No, that's like a cliffhanger.
So I thought maybe that Mark would be a mentor for me.
Okay.
But I'd never asked anybody before, hey, will you be my mentor?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of hokey.
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
So I don't know. I'd have no idea how to have that conversation, right? Yeah. But anyway, I did ask him once, like, what does it take to be a good travel nurse? Because at that point I had decided, okay, I am going to stay in nursing. I do want to be an ER nurse, and I'm going to be a traveler.
That's awesome.
So since I'm going to do that, how do I be a good one, right? And I'm looking for something really profound. He's the ER director of this really busy ER, and it's just, I'm ready. Give it to me. I've got a notepad and a pen, and I'm ready. And he says, which is really disappointing, he says 80% of it is showing up on time.
Really?
Like, okay, well,
I mean, that's important, but that's like,
well, that's kind of disappointing. Like, why? Well, like, I'm already doing that.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I know, you're doing okay.
So
what else? Right? Anyway, so he told me, if you ever get a chance, looking for it on my shelf, if you ever get a chance, you should read this book called Hardwiring Excellence.
Okay.
Well, I took that to mean I should go home and get on Amazon and buy a book called Hardwiring Excellence. And so I did, and then I read it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I began to do some of the things that are in the book.
Mm.
So I try to, if I'm going to ask somebody a question, hey, how do you think I do this thing? And then they
Mm-hmm.
tell me, well, I kind of a secret spy code I have. I try to start doing it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? I'm
Good.
not
Good
100%
feedback.
on it, but,
Yeah.
um, and sometimes I buck it, but at any rate, so I was, where am I at? I am in Louisville, Kentucky on
Mm.
a travel assignment. And by this point, I don't really want to be a traveler anymore.
Mm.
And the reason is because what I've done is when I was a truck driver, I would listen to guys at a truck stop. By then there's no cell phones back then. This is 1990
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's no cell phones. So everybody's using regular phones at the table, right, in restaurants. And I'm listening to guys either be married or act like fathers on the phone.
Mm.
And I swore to myself, I'm never doing that. I'm single. When I was a truck driver, I was single. But still, like if I ever get married, I'm not ever doing that.
Yeah.
But parenting from over the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then I became a travel nurse, and I'm married and have two kids. And the
Mm.
thing I did is successfully remove myself from my family
Yeah.
for 300 something days a year.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And did all my parenting over the phone,
Interesting.
not unlike a truck driver,
Yeah.
except I got to wear pajamas to work.
And
Um,
you probably got paid better,
well,
hopefully.
yeah,
I don't know
I
about
got paid
Kentucky.
better. Right. Um, yeah. Well, anyway, so that's where I'm at, but I can't afford to not travel anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Um, when I saw the Facebook ad for Nurse Coach Collective. So I didn't ask other nurses about what do you think about this. And I didn't know anybody who would be involved in like business really
Mm-hmm.
or coaching
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know that it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned what I could about coaching. And then I asked people who had been in business and who knew me really well. What do you think about this? What do you think about me doing this? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know anything about what is nurse coaching, but I talked to people who knew me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, every one of them said, no, don't do that. So here I am.
I'm glad you didn't
Um,
listen.
and so, well, the reason is like we talked about why they said that. And then I decided, okay, I'm probably just not explaining what this thing is.
Sure, like especially if you don't
Right.
really know what it is.
Yeah, I'm probably not explaining it well. Well, anyway, so my wife and I both went through the program,
Oh,
the Nurse Coach
amazing.
Collective. Yep. So I decided actually, incidentally, that it's not a scam.
Good, good. Yes, I would
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So I dug into it pretty hard. Um,
Cool.
and and then decided, okay, I like this. In fact, I liked it so well, I bought two seats, one for me and one for my wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was my introduction to the world of coaching. Somewhere some months ago, the question came up, what interested you in
Mm-hmm.
coaching? And I had to think about that for a lot. Um, and what I came up with is all the different roles that I've had. So I've done lots of different things, right? Of all the different roles that I've had, the thing I've liked the best, that I've enjoyed the most in those different roles, is when I was helping to develop somebody else.
Mm, yeah,
That's what I liked about it.
me too.
So I did that with a truck driver that I've never met.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, in fact, I've never seen him again.
Mm.
And that company drives so slow. If I ever saw him on the road, I passed him right away. But um, so that was a guy that just could not figure out how to back up.
Mm.
And we were just destroying that guy on the CB radio, just blasting, and I'm participating in it. And then I realized, like, well, I'm 20 something years old, but I'm really just like a really tall middle schooler, um, blasting somebody because he can't do this thing I think he
Mm-hmm.
should be able to do. Well, that wasn't working. Blasting him wasn't helping him.
Yeah.
And so I finally I'm the only one out of everybody in that yard. I'm the only one. I got out of my truck and went and beat on his door. I would say knock on it, but that's not really true. I made him understand he needed to talk to me.
Good.
Uh, so Again, it's how to win friends. So anyway, I jumped up on the step on his door, and I'm like, "You look like you need help. So I'm going to work with you on this because this is not working."
Yeah.
So we went back and forth a few times, and that didn't work. So I told him to open his door, and I stuck my head in there where I can kind of see his mirror, like from his perspective.
Yeah.
That didn't work. And finally, I'm like, "I'll tell you what, why don't you move over?" And I got in this guy's truck who I'd never met before. I pushed him out of his seat and talked him through what I was doing
Yeah.
as I was backing him up. When I was a contractor, I hired brand new people that had never been on a roof before. I had a customer come out and ask me, like, "What are you doing?" Because I took a guy while I was going to do a repair. I got one crew on a job, and I went across town, took another guy with me, new guy, and we went across town. And for the first like 30 minutes that we were there, all we did is pick a ladder up and set it on the ground.
Yeah, just to teach them the basics.
Yep. So the
Yep.
customer finally came out and he's like, "What are you doing? Are you actually going to do the repair?" Like, "Yeah, I got a new guy. I'm teaching him how to set a ladder up safely." And then I ignored the customer and went back to my guy, and I'm like, "Okay, pick it up again." "All right,
Yeah.
good. Now put it back on the ground." And so that's where we started, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I taught that guy how to be a foreman and lead a job.
Awesome.
Um, so yeah, the thing I've enjoyed the most out of all these different things I've done is when I've gotten to help develop somebody.
Yeah.
That's what drew me to the world of coaching. Um, so I said, "Okay, I'll tell you about the story about that lady, right?"
Thank you.
Well, I'm in New Mexico, um, and it's a pretty busy ER. This lady who would come in I could get all the overtime I wanted. I was sometimes there 7 days a week,
Oh, wow.
and she was there more often than I was. Yeah, she was in all the time. So she had used to been sometime in the past. She had used to been a local beauty queen,
Mm.
and then at some point she'd been involved in a car crash. And in the car crash, she'd injured her leg, got introduced to pain meds, and somewhere in the mix of things, she graduated pain meds, graduated to meth, right, which is
Oh,
not uncommon.
man.
An injured leg progressed to amputation.
Yeah. Oh,
And so when she'd come into the ER, we'd have to take her leg off because otherwise she would take it off and beat people with it.
oh my gosh.
So she was not a nice person, and she had learned that meth was not a beauty treatment.
Yeah.
So she had gone from beauty queen to meth head,
Mm.
and from, normal person who can do stuff to one leg. Right. So she
Yeah.
was unhappy, and she would come into the ER and then take that unhappiness out on all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And she just was not a nice person. She was very unpleasant. It was cool though. I thought I knew a lot of swear words. I'd been a truck driver, a contractor. I'd been in the military. I was around a bunch of gangbangers in Seattle. No, I learned all kinds of new bad words from this lady. So she was
Oh my
instructive
gosh.
too.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so this particular day, the day we went dancing, I was down the end of the hallway in a room where most of the rooms in that hospital were separated by those, like, the ninth mystery of the world curtains.
Yeah. That
Right.
do
And so those are
practically
the
nothing.
curtains that somehow meet HIPAA compliance,
Yeah. No.
but they stop a
Yes.
foot from the ceiling, a foot from the floor.
Right.
They don't close on either end, and they don't meet in the middle.
Yes.
And somehow that meets HIPAA compliance.
Right.
Anyway, we don't know how the pyramids got there, how those curtains work, but they do. So I'm in that room, right? And I'm just visiting with a patient. In fact, fun thing at that hospital, I'm in one of those rooms with just the curtains, right? And it's pretty easy to come up with "I'm a traveler," because
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, like, where do you, the town that they live in? And I asked, "Is that near there?" Which
Mm-hmm.
is a giveaway for, you're not from here, are
You're
you?
around here,
Right.
yeah.
So I told the lady I'm talking to where I'm from, and from across the hallway, I hear, "Fergus Falls, we live in Barnesville," which is a small town real close to where I live. And like, so I told
Huh,
that
small
patient, like,
world.
hold that thought.
Yeah.
I go across the hall and talk to those people. They're next door neighbors to the guy that we bought our house from.
Oh my gosh, what a small world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, anyway, so I'm down at the hallway. I'm visiting with a patient, and we're just like, I'm not doing stuff. We're just visiting, right? And I hear all this commotion, all this unhappiness. Um, so I tell the patient, like, hold that thought, because I like to get involved in that kind of stuff.
Of course you do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so I'm on my way out, and the patient says, whose room I'm just leaving, they're like, don't close that all the way. We want to see.
I know, right?
Yeah. Because you know what it's like being an ER patient. Something bad happened to you, and the punishment is that we put you in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so the commotion is all this unhappiness is this lady doesn't want to be here anymore. So she brings
Mm,
herself in, makes a big fuss, fights with everybody that she can, hits people if she's able to. A lot of times has to get medication to just get knocked out. And
yeah.
then at some point, she'll wake up and throw a big enough fuss until the doctors allow her to leave.
Mm,
And that's just kind of the routine. And she comes like,
cycle. Yeah.
again, every day, right? It's just her life now, or at
Mm,
that time. Um, so she's trying to leave, but she can't, right? Because she's not, she shouldn't go. She's not on a hold,
safe.
but she
Yeah.
shouldn't
Yeah.
go.
Not safe leave.
Yeah. And of course, we get people undressed in the ER, right? So she's just down to her underwear and wearing one of those designer gowns.
Hmm.
Um, and so she's surrounded by an entourage of people, nurses and the security guy, and they're all yelling at each other. So, like, this is typical communication, right? I said something to you, and you either didn't hear me, or you didn't like it, or you didn't respond right away. And so I said it to you louder.
Right.
And so you snapped back at me, and then I snapped at you, and then
It
you
starts
yelled at me, and I
escalating and
yelled at you, and here we
yeah.
go, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we typically do it. Pick something, right? At home, at work, at church.
Hmm.
It's kind of pretty common. So that's what's happening. There's a bunch of people around this lady. She's screaming at them, and they're screaming at her. Every one of them using foul language.
Hmm.
And the way that I interject myself into those things is I step into the middle of it, stick my hand out, and said, "Hi, my name's Steve. What's your name?" She and I know each other because, again,
Right.
she comes in all the time. It's been several weeks now. And so what I told her was, "Hey, I haven't seen you for a while. How have you been doing? I haven't seen you for a bit." And so I'm the weird one. The reason that it draws all the attention to me is I'm the weird one,
Yeah.
right? I'm the one who's not yelling. I'm the one who's not screaming. I'm the only one who's smiling. I'm the one who's sticking my hand out.
Yeah.
And so most people, it doesn't matter if it's this lady, or I met Jesus when I was in Vermont. I met his dad when I was down in Missouri. I've met all kinds of really interesting
Yeah,
people.
I'm sure.
Um, so all of them the same way, right? I smile, stick my hand out,
Yeah.
and they respond by smiling and sticking their hand out. And if you're smiling at me, you can't be using a bunch of foul language at the same time,
Right.
right? So anyway, so she's shaking hands with me now. It's still wanting to yell. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not yelling at you. Like, and I'm this
Hmm.
close to you. You don't have to yell at me either. I'm listening to you.
Hmm.
So anyway, tell me how you been. Tell me what's been going on in your world.
Hmm.
Well, now that I've got her talking, everybody just leaves,
Yeah.
right? A bunch of ER nurses, most ER nurses don't like psych patients anyway. And nobody liked this lady because most of us had been hit with her leg,
Mm.
um, and punched, gouged, and, all manner of things.
Yeah.
So anyway, they left. Some will just to go back to work, and some of them to get the injections that we're fixing to use.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this lady some shots, and she's going to take a nap.
Yes.
That's what's coming up in her future. Well, so she only has one leg, and that means that she's a human pogo stick. So she has to keep bouncing in order to keep her balance, right? And she's kind of going in a circle also to keep her balance, and she's working her way towards the exit door.
Oh gosh.
And so I'm kind of in a circle too, because I'm just staying in front of her, between her and the exit,
Yeah.
right? And then other people eventually are going to come back, and we're going to sort this out, and she's going to go to bed. So while we're doing that, she's bouncing up and down, and we're kind of going in circles, working our way towards the exit door. And I had a thought, and hey, I got a question. Did you ever used to like to dance?
Oh.
She stood stock still, completely still. Her lips started quivering. She almost started crying. And she said, I used to love to
Oh.
dance. So I put my hands out and I was like, can I have this dance?
Oh my gosh.
And so we waltzed 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all the way back down the hallway. I put her back in bed. I got her a warm blanket and a cup of ice water. Those are two main things that we do as ER nurses.
And a turkey sandwich.
Yep. Yep.
I was a former ER nurse. They're staples.
Yep. The three things you have to learn to get out of nursing school
Yeah,
to work
pretty
in the
much.
ER. Yep. And she slept for like the next 7 hours.
Oh,
And when she left, we gave her back her leg. She was polite and everything. We gave her back her
yeah.
leg. And when she left, she said, thank you.
Mm.
This is the very first time she'd said words like that in the ER.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things I do now is I teach people how to connect when we
Mm-hmm.
communicate
Yeah. Well, you treated
like
her
I
like a
did with that lady.
human.
Right.
You
Right.
helped her connect to herself, and she's probably had lost that bit of herself over the years with her leg loss and drug use and all those things, but you connected with her as a human. It's
Yep.
beautiful.
Even angry people in the ER,
Hmm.
most of the
Hmm.
times, if you just pretend like a patient is a real person and treat them like it,
Yeah.
most of the time they'll
Yeah.
respond like real people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was fun.
Thank you for sharing that. Not only was it funny, it had a really great ending. Yeah. Oh, so tell me a little bit more about what you're doing as coaching. You mentioned you help connect people or connect with people or teach them connections. Share with me a little bit more about that.
So you said before that you were a nurse manager, right?
In one of my former nurse lives, yes.
Yeah, right. Um, yeah, thank God for evolution, right? Uh,
Right?
so we can evolve from that.
Yeah.
But um, so you be the manager and I'm the guy that works for you, right?
Okay.
You're probably not really looking forward to talking to me today.
Yeah. Especially if it's something that's uncomfortable to talk about.
Well, most of the time it is, right? So most of the time that you're going to interact with me is there's some either one, there's an issue or a task,
Right.
right? There's an issue because I'm not showing up to work on time, or I didn't. This is a real issue actually in my unit, is I got jumped because I wasn't taking lunch breaks.
Mm,
So it's not really a part of this thing, but the question I have is lunch breaks important for my rest and well-being as a nurse, or are lunch breaks important for some metric that my manager needs to watch? Because I got
mm-hmm,
jumped, not
mm-hmm,
because we're concerned about you're not getting enough rest, Steve,
mm.
but because we got to watch the pennies on overtime.
Right. And meal penalties. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but at any rate, so you're not looking forward to talking to me because there's either some issue or there's some task,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not a person to you, maybe on some level, right? You know, like, oh, I realize that this nurse is actually sort of like a person also,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but really I'm not. I'm just an item that you have to manage throughout your day,
mm-hmm.
right? Did you know that something over 70% of the people when they change jobs not because I don't like the hospital I'm working for, but they leave the manager that they're working for.
I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what if for fun we could adjust that?
Mm,
That would probably help retention, right?
absolutely.
Okay, so um, one of the tools that I use is called DISC,
Oh, yeah.
which
Is
is
it the disc assessment?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
I think I've done
So
that before.
I'm an executive member of the Maxwell leadership team,
Cool.
um, and I'm a DISC consultant, and so DISC is the um, the four primary communication styles.
Mm-hmm.
And so the styles are D is dominant.
Mm-hmm.
So I happen to be high D, which is I have the ability, spiritual gifts are fun. I have the ability to be able to steamroll somebody and not even know,
Got it.
right? And sometimes back up to make sure that I got them good. Um, so D is dominant or driver.
Mm-hmm.
A D personality is somewhat interested in working through people or actually using people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference, right, between using people and working through people.
Sure.
So a D is mostly interested in like somewhat using people, but also just interested in tasks.
Mm-hmm.
I is influencer. So that's the person who just wants to get everybody together and let's get things going and this will be really fun and whatever, right? That person is interested in working with people and they're mostly interested in like um kind of how is everyone feeling and
Yes,
you know,
I'm an
right?
I. I'm almost positive. It's been a while since I've done it.
And then S is supportive, which is I don't really want to be in the front, but you
Mm-hmm.
just tell me what you need and I'll help you get that done, right?
Mm-hmm.
C is controller or compliant, and not compliant in the kind of like you can just walk on me, but making
Yeah.
sure that all the T's are crossed. And like I noticed on page 76 in the third paragraph in the second line, right? That kind of thing.
We can think of those people, yes.
So you have all four of those personality types in the unit that you're working in,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have their primary ways of communicating and also their primary ways of I don't like to be communicated with that way,
Yes.
right? So that's an environment ripe for conflict, or at least for
Mm-hmm.
misunderstanding, which then becomes conflict, right?
Right.
So by understanding DISC, not only my own profile, but like my own
Who you
primary
work with.
communication styles, but also, right,
Mm.
if I understand that you're a high I, right,
Yeah.
then I can
Yeah.
adjust. And it's not about, well, I'm an S, so supportive. And so I can't be the leader.
Right.
It's not that there's a
Just
communication
a
style that's
style.
wrong.
Uh,
It's like understanding the strengths of this particular
yeah.
style, how to adjust that to be able to work in the role that you need to fill,
Absolutely. Because
right?
if you were connecting with me, I might be like, oh, that's too much. Like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm being steamrolled. So I'm the kind of person who's like, tell me how that feels. What's going on with you? And then
Right.
after you like get through the touchy feely stuff, then tell me what you need to do and I'll go do it.
Yep.
Like
So disc is just one of the things. One of
cool.
my favorite learning systems is the 15 laws of growth.
Mm.
Um, so this is a John Maxwell book that was
Uh,
written like, I don't know, lots of years ago.
yeah.
Um, and but there's 15 laws of growth. And so one of them, for example, is law number 8, the law of pain,
Mm.
which says that good management of bad experiences can lead to great growth.
Hmm.
Well, I've had some bad experiences
Yeah.
and I've had to think about how to put, like we say, but it can be kind of a cliche-ish, right? Like, well, what's the gift in that? Well, there's not a lot of gift right now because I'm angry that this thing happened, right?
Sure.
But the truth is that good management of bad experiences can lead to great growth.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I'm thinking about one specifically here. Oh, how about why work with a coach?
Mm. Why?
Yeah, that'd be law number 13, the law of modeling.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to improve when you have no one to follow but yourself,
Yeah.
right? Um, law number 10 is the law of the rubber band. Growth stops. So this actually applies to me,
Mm-hmm.
negatively applies to me.
Okay.
So law 10 is the law of the rubber band. Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you want to be.
Mm.
So I got involved in the coaching world. I don't even remember. Was it? Oh, must have been the maybe January of 22.
Okay.
Um, my wife was telling me 2 years ago, but anyway, so a little while ago, right?
Almost 2 years ago.
Um, and anyway, so law 10, the law of the rubber band. Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you want to be. In January of this year, I
Mm-hmm.
stopped traveling and I became a staff nurse at my local hospital.
Mm.
And I was initially pretty happy. Like, there's not all the things I'm excited about, but it's a really short commute. I sleep in my own
Yeah.
house, right? All those kind of things. I'm working with people in my own community, um, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about that. So I got complacent and didn't work too hard on building my own practice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I experienced growth stopping. I lost tension between where I am and where I want to be.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, that's one
And
of my favorite
yeah,
books.
and it's sometimes hard to rebuild that when you've taken a step back, to get that tension back of where that good balance of being pushed forward and having that balance too.
Mm-hmm. So there's law
Yeah.
number 2 is the law of the mirror.
Ah,
You have to know yourself to grow yourself.
absolutely. Sometimes that's scary.
That's a true statement. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. I love this stuff, Steve. Thank you so much for sharing these little nuggets and your stories. And it's definitely been one of my funner episodes. I think I've laughed more on this episode than any of them. So thank you.
Yeah, this was fun.
Good, good. So where can people find you?
Um, my email is steve@maximpact.com.
Okay.
MACSIMPACT. Yeah, that's probably the best place.
Okay.
I
Awesome.
will have a website soon,
Yeah.
um, which is going to be maximpact.com.
Okay.
MACSIMPACT. Um,
Awesome.
but I don't know. It's not up yet.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. And before do you want to talk about your writing and stuff you have working on
Oh,
there?
I am writing. I'm
Yeah.
writing a book about. I'm writing a
Throw it
book
out into the
about.
universe.
I have a title, and I even have some of the material written. So the title is "The 5 Steps to a Successful Travel Contract." The subtitle is "By a Guy Who's Been Fired from a Few."
That's awesome.
Um, so I'm writing about the 5 steps to a successful travel contract. So basically, the 5 steps are like, who is it a good deal for,
Yeah.
right? So the first one is it has to be a good deal for the patient. So
Mm.
as a traveler, I have to have the same. Well, you're a nurse manager, right? Actually,
Mm.
you'll show up in step number 3. Um, so we'll just revert you back to being a nurse manager at some point in the past. And so you're the person in this example, you'll be the person that hires the travelers, right?
Okay.
So, but as a travel nurse, I have to have all the same competencies that your
Mm-hmm.
staff nurse does, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is it has to be a good deal for the patient.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to remember, try to remember not to push them out of bed, try to remember not to push the wheelchair down the stairs.
Right.
Uh,
Safety
you know,
things.
yeah, give them some of their medications at about the right time, stuff
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah.
So I got to have the same competencies that a regular nurse, that a staff nurse would have, right?
Mm-hmm.
The truth is that I'm really expected to have even better competencies than that.
Mm.
Like an ER nurse needs to be good at starting IVs.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be a maestro
Mm-hmm.
because I'm expected right away to, like, it's just kind of an unspoken thing. Everybody thinks that the travel nurse is making, look at all the money that you're getting paid. Yeah, that's why we fly around in helicopters. Right.
Right.
Um, anyway, so step number 1 has to be a good deal for the patient. Step number 2 is it has to be a good deal for the team that I'm joining.
Mm.
So I should do things like, if you hired a new person, what kind of things would that person do? Like, it'd be
Mm-hmm.
helpful if they showed up on time some of the time,
That would be helpful.
right? It'd be helpful if they got their stuff done and instead of sitting around on their phone at the nurse's station, they're like, what can I do to help you?
Yeah.
Right. Or they could just see that room hasn't been cleaned yet in the ER.
And
They
go
could
do it.
just see, right. And then just go do it. Right. Um, and so I've worked with travel nurses that are like, this is my thing. I've done my thing. When I get another thing, I'll do
Mm.
that thing. I've
Yeah.
worked with those people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've watched the way that other people work with them.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, step number 1 is has to be a good deal for the patient. Step number 2 has to be a good deal for the team that I'm joining, right? So I'm going to come and help you start your IV if you need to, or stuff like that. I worked really hard at learning how to do ultrasound IVs,
Mm-hmm.
and I got really good at it. And the reason is because I was at some places where we needed it a few times and nobody can do it.
Yeah.
And so when I went somewhere else, then I angled myself in there to be able to learn how to do it, and then I got good at
Great.
it. so that I could be a resource when I went to either that place or the next place,
Awesome.
right? Because I need to be it needs to be a good deal for the team that I'm joining.
Yeah.
The third step is it needs to be a good deal for you. So the organization that hired me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had a stack of applications or whatever they are to go through, and you hired me instead of the other 800,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. So it needs to be a good deal for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up on time and I try to remember not to steal a lot of your drugs while I'm there. And,
Right.
um, and stuff like that, right? I just make things smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it needs to be a good deal for the organization that I'm joining. It needs to be a good deal for the travel company that sent me there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What that looks like is, let's suppose that, so I'm married. This is going to create a fight in a minute. So, so I'm married and I'm at work and I'm having a fight with my wife and I bring that with me to work. And I've just
Yes.
spent the whole shift complaining about, right? I can't believe my wife said this or she didn't do that or,
Yeah. Just
whatever,
reflects
right?
poorly.
Yeah, I wanted to get a new helicopter and she said no. And, right, whatever it is. Nobody's going to want to hang out with me,
Right.
right? Now, imagine that I'm making that same kind of complaint about my travel company,
Mm-hmm.
right? So somebody says, well, like, how much money do you really make? Like, there's all this rumor. How much money do you really make? Because that's the first thing they want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so my travel company didn't pay me, or on this assignment, I was on an assignment once. My rate got cut by $900 a week on an
Mm.
assignment. And so if we badmouth the travel company, that's going to just insert a bunch of nastiness into your unit,
Yeah.
right?
And that's going to get back to them.
Yeah, well, right. So it needs to be a good deal for the patient, needs to be a good deal for the team that I'm joining, needs to be a good deal for you, the facility that hired me,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be a good deal for the travel company that sent me there.
Mm-hmm.
And the fifth thing is it needs to be a good deal for me.
Absolutely.
But I know about number five before I know about any of the rest.
Good.
Because I know before I accept the contract how much it's going to pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have an idea about how much my rent's going to be and that kind of stuff. So I know financially how it's going to work out for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and I know how far it is from home and like all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I put number five last for a reason because I've worked with travelers who, like, I am the traveler and it's your fault that you're short staffed and I'm here to save the day,
Yeah.
right? I've worked with travelers that are really
Yeah.
prima donna and, I'm only doing this, I'm only doing this, and so on, right?
Yeah.
My objective when I go someplace is I just want to be a part of your team.
Yeah.
And then as you get to know me, you'll find out that there's lots of different ways that I can add value to your team while I'm there.
Awesome.
And so that's how I got to that title is if you put the patient first, like again, try not to push them out of bed and do mean stuff to them and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you put the team first, the people that I'm going to be working with, I'm here to help you guys out. I'm not here to take over.
Yeah.
I'm here to, like, what do you need me to do right now? And sometime I have a lot of experience, like in the ER, right? I've seen lots of different things and I have lots of different input because I've been in lots of
Mm-hmm.
different facilities. And like your little 4-bed ER, you like, no, not very many people arm wrestle trains.
Yeah.
And so when that guy came in, I had the most experience with,
Yikes.
high level trauma, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's that, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's slow step and grab it to the bathroom,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes it's cleaning up room 3.
Yeah.
So whatever it is. Um, anyway, that's one of the things I'm working on writing.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for that to come out. I know that you are slowly chipping away at his books, and writing is very challenging some days. So, thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for being on the podcast today. And any last little tidbit message that you want to get out before we sign off?
Mhm. Not really. This was an interesting experience.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Great. Well, thank you again, Steve, so much. It's been awesome chatting with you. All
All right. Have a good night.
right, take care.